Welcome to Surviving the Side Hustle, the podcast for high performers who've gone all in, but still feeling a little stuck. I'm your host, Rob Tracy, coach, speaker, and creator of the Prime Performance Process. If you're a solopreneur, small business owner, or just launched your side hustle and you're tired of grinding with no momentum, this is for you. Every week, we bring you guests that have broke the code, generated momentum, and finally got unstuck. And we're diving into their stories, their struggles, and their secrets to generating massive momentum in both their personal and professional lives. We don't do fluff here. We do frameworks, real talk, and share the kind of insights that get you unstuck for good. Welcome, and let's get rolling. But before we dive in, I gotta remind you, if you're overwhelmed, spinning your wheels, or just tired of hustling without the results, it's time for a Prime Performance Strategy session. In this free call, we'll zoom out on your life and business, identify the real reason you're feeling stuck, and build a game plan to help you reclaim your confidence, energy, and gain some clarity so you can get back to doing what you set out to do. Lead, grow, and thrive. This isn't surface level coaching. It's a system built on resilience, intentionality, clarity, and alignment. So head over to survivingthesidehustle.com/free call to grab your spot today. Again, that's survivingthesidehustle.com/free call. Let's get going and help you look good, feel good, and do great things. What's going on, and welcome back to another episode of Surviving the Side Hustle Recap, Friday Recap. I want to kick it off by asking, what if the biggest advantage you could give yourself as an entrepreneur wasn't speed, but actually patience? And what if the real edge wasn't finding the next hot opportunity, but actually learning how to recognize opportunity early and then staying with it until long enough for it to mature? Well, that's what this week's conversation with Michael Cobb really unlocked for me. Because in a world obsessed with overnight success and going viral, getting huge wins, and the get rich quick thinking, Mike represents something radically different. He represents long-term vision, deep preparation, and a willingness to do work that doesn't pay off for years. Sometimes it even takes decades. So let me introduce Mike Cobb. Michael Cobb is an international entrepreneur and investor with more than 3 decades of experience building businesses across Central and South America. What started for him as side projects and overseas curiosity evolved into long-standing entrepreneurial enterprises, specifically in international mortgage financing, real estate development, banking and asset protection, sustainable forestry and timber production. And what stood out immediately in this conversation wasn't just what Mike has built, but really how he thinks. So Mike's the kind of person who doesn't just chase the trends. He studies systems. He doesn't rush decisions. He prepares for opportunity long enough before it even shows up. And that mindset is exactly what most side hustlers and high performers and entrepreneurs even struggle to adopt. One of the most powerful moments that Mike shared in the episode was about hearing how Mike's first international business was actually born. It was not from some master plan, but it was from an observation. See, in the early 1990s, Mike traveled to Belize with a friend who was doing asset protection work for U.S. doctors. What began as a vacation quickly turned into this giant curiosity. They noticed something strange. Beautiful condos were being built, but construction was stalled. Buildings sat around completely unfinished. No workers, no progress. And when they asked the developers why, their answer was simple. They said that there was no financing for the buyers. U.S. banks wouldn't finance property in Belize, and Belize banks wouldn't finance foreigners, which makes a lot of sense to me. And in that gap, that space, that friction, a business opportunity quietly existed. And that's when Mike's partner asked one simple question. He asked him, would you sell your paper at discount? And just like that, a mortgage business was born. Not because they were searching for one, but because they were prepared enough to recognize it. And here's the part that a lot of people typically miss. This business didn't immediately replace Mike's career. For years, it stayed as a side hustle, silently growing and working in the background. And Mike was still working in the computer industry in Washington, D.C. So he traveled overseas every few months, handled meetings remotely, learned as he went. It wasn't a dramatic leap of faith, it was patient overlap. And that's an important reminder for anybody who's listening who feels pressure to go all in before they're completely ready. Because sometimes the smartest move isn't just quitting and jumping and burning the boats. It's actually building quietly. And I want to touch on why speed can be overrated in terms of long-term thinking. On the conversation with Mike, one of the central themes of the episode conversation really is time horizon. Mike was talking openly about how dangerous short-term thinking is for certain entrepreneurs, but he also reminds us that mastery takes time. Businesses compound slowly, and most wins come from work that doesn't look exciting in the moment. He shared a story from his early sales career where he spent hours every day reading industry publications, knowing that only 1% of it would ever be useful. But the problem is you never know which 1% actually matters until it's later down the road. And that's really what preparation tends to be. And that's also why Mike says opportunity isn't random. He says, and I love how he said this, he said, Lady Luck walks down the hallway and knocks on everyone's door. You just have to make sure that you're ready to open it. And that pairs perfectly with what we teach in Prime Performance around the principle of opportunity creation. Because I'm constantly talking about how luck favors the prepared while missed opportunity haunts the unprepared. And if you've been following any of my content or stuff recently, I share about the luck framework, about leveraging your uniqueness. And Mike did that perfect because he didn't need to be the mortgage expert. He just brought curiosity and problem solving to the solution. Another step of the luck equation is understanding your audience. See, he studied the system, not just the opportunity. He studied the people involved, the environment, all of these things. Yo, what's up? Sorry for interrupting. It's me, Rob. If you've been listening and thinking, man, I just know I'm capable of so much more, but something's just really not clicking, well, I've got something for you. It's called the Prime Performance Personality Quiz. And in just a few minutes, you'll uncover what's actually slowing you down. So whether it's a mindset block, energy drain, or a lack of clarity, this quiz is going to give you specific insights to help you build momentum again. Again, this quiz is free, fast, and honestly, freakishly accurate. So take it now over at survivingthesidehustle.com/quiz and stop spinning, start winning today. Another component is you need to learn how to collaborate successfully. And for Mike, every business involved partners and specialists. So he needed to know where he brought his strengths, who he needed to bring in to combat the weaknesses that he might have had, and make sure that he was creating a structured success wrapped around this collaboration concept. And then finally, the last component of creating opportunity is make sure that you keep consistent. You got to continue to show up. Mike is a perfect example because for years, he did this without the immediate payoff. And it wasn't luck by accident, it was luck by design. And one of the most fascinating evolutions that Mike shared for his journey is how one business naturally led into another. Mortgage financing revealed flaws in construction quality, and that insight led to real estate development, which then eventually became forestry. Mike and his partners discovered a reforestation incentive program in Panama and planted teak trees, knowing full well that they wouldn't see a return for over 25 years. Most people laughed, and Mike said, in 25s, I'll either need the money or I'll be glad that I did this. Or I won't need the money and I'll still be glad that I did this. And that is long-term thinking at its finest. Today, those trees are finally being harvested. He's got a sawmill that is operational, and a 27-year investment is finally paying major dividends. Another final and powerful lesson from this conversation is Mike's humility. Despite running multiple international businesses, he's very clear about one thing. He says that he doesn't have the technical expertise in most of his businesses. And instead, he focuses on hiring people who do. So going back to what we were saying a minute ago, he gets in the position where he can find people who he needs, that he can inspire with the vision and staying available, communicating constantly. Mike makes a sharp distinction between leadership and management, and intentionality about staying in his lane. The key takeaway for entrepreneurs who try to wear every single hat and burn out quickly because of it. I know that because that's where we're living on a day-to-day basis, right? We're either developing content, coaching calls, networking, going through all of those things. So if you can get yourself to a position where you can bring somebody in to handle a lot of the other work, that just exponentially makes your business that much better. And one of my favorite metaphors from this conversation, or this week's episode really, is that business is a lot like roller skating uphill. There's no such thing as coasting. If you stop pushing, you start to slide backwards. That doesn't mean you have to grind endlessly, but it does mean that you have to continue facing forward. Mike encourages business owners to outsource what pulls them backwards so that they can spend more time focusing and looking ahead towards that next opportunity. Mike also emphasizes the importance of self-awareness, which is huge around here. Tools like the Myers-Briggs, DISC, and StrengthsFinder aren't all about just labels. They're really about alignment and teaching you when and where you operate in your zones. Because when you do, work feels lighter, time seems to disappear, and service really improves. And really, that's where real value and sustainable success comes from. So I wanted to make sure that I save a minute here to kind of share about Mike's book. Because he shares about the origin of his book. So it's called How to Buy Your Home Overseas. And the full title actually is How to Buy Your Home Overseas and Get It Right the First Time. And it's interesting because this book here actually started off as a simple consumer guide. Its purpose isn't to sell copies. It was to help people avoid these costly mistakes. Because, overseas transactions require a lot of things like humility, due diligence, and willingness to unlearn assumptions. And the most incredible thing that Mike was generous to do is to give a free copy of the book to anybody listening to this episode or that last episode too. All you got to do is email subject line Mike's book to podcast@ecidevelopment.com. So that is, you want to email, subject line is Mike's book to podcast@ecidevelopment.com. And finally, for you guys, when I asked Mike what mistakes he hopes listeners avoid, his answer was immediate. He said hubris. He said thinking what you know, even though you don't know. He says, assuming rules are the same everywhere, letting excitement override diligence. Those are all the major things that happens. He says the antidote really is humility, curiosity, and patience. And final reflection I want to share with you guys is that this episode is a pure reminder, nothing else, that success doesn't need to be fast to be meaningful. Side hustles don't need to be rushed to be considered real. And the best opportunities often reward those willing to wait. So build slowly, prepare deeply, stay ready, because luck favors the prepared again, and missed opportunity haunts the unprepared. As always, make sure that you reflect honestly, choose intentionality, and keep surviving the side hustle. Till next time, guys, peace, peace, peace. And that's it for this episode of Surviving the Side Hustle. If you found this valuable, the best way to support the show is to rate and review on Apple or Spotify. It helps get the show in front of more driven individuals just like you, and helps them discover the tools to get unstuck, break through burnout, and build something real. And you can always connect deeper with me, our guests, or grab free resources at survivingthesidehustle.com/Rob. Whether it's a strategy call, the Prime Performance Personality Quiz, some of our products, or just to check out our free content library. Connect with us over at survivingthesidehustle.com Rob. And hey, remember this. You weren't meant to just grind. You were built to grow. So stay conscious, stay committed, and keep showing up. Peace, guys.